The Kansas City Chiefs will be taking on the New York Giants in an effort to get this season off to the races as far as the wins column is concerned. And we're going to talk about why and how many games they really need to win along the way. But this will be a preview and a prediction for the Giants game. So let's get into things right off the top. Some talking points that we have heading into this game. You probably need 10 wins to make the playoffs. Normally, that's just about what it takes to get into the tournament. That means starting this weekend, from this weekend forth, the Chiefs have to win 2 out of every 3 games that they play. Now, that might sound like a tall task, but that is a .660 winning percentage. Last year, they won 7.5 games for every loss. This team is better on paper, but like I have said all off-season long, it is very possible to be a better team than last season and still suffer more defeats in the regular season. And as they have already lost just as many games as they did last year, it would seem that that is going to happen. If they drop one more along the way, that means they will have lost more games than they did last year. The number 2 thing we're talking about before we get into the breakdown is that the Giants are winless, but they are not hapless. That game against the Cowboys showed that they are a team that can reach up and bite you. It might also show that not only, as I said after the Eagles game, the Eagles are kind of looking a lot like the Chiefs last year. It might be that the entire division over there in the NFC is kind of struggling. The Cowboys nearly beat the Eagles in week 1. The Eagles nearly dropped it to the Chiefs in week 2. The Cowboys have not looked good. And, well, I guess, they scored 40 points against the Giants, but it was kind of a game where everyone had moments and no one looked good, if that makes any sense. And the number 3 thing here, the special teams need to be a point of emphasis this week. The Giants can return kicks. The number 4 thing to talk about before kicking off the analysis, the Giants just scored 6 points in week 1, but they scored 37 points in week 2. This is an offense that seems to lack identity to this point, but it is one that can also score points. It's sort of that manic sort of offense that is going to maybe spell problems for the Chiefs this weekend, but I don't really think so. So what are we talking about when the Chiefs run the football? Well, they don't, not really. But the Giants gave up 86 yards to a running back in week 1 and 67 yards to the quarterback in week 1. Here's the thing with that. In week 1, the running back averaged 8.2 yards per carry, and the quarterback averaged 6.2 yards per carry. Then they gave up 97 yards last week to a running back, where that running back averaged 5.4 yards per carry. So while I do not believe the running game will be a point of emphasis for the Chiefs would do well to put some work in there to calm the pass rush. I do think that the Chiefs can be effective running the ball against this Giants front. This might be a good week to establish a 3-headed monster at running back, if you want to call it that, Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, but also the rookie needs to get in on things because he does have the speed, Brashard Smith, that these other running backs lack. Well, Isaiah Pacheco has the speed, but he just does not. You can't show off your speed when you're running directly into people's backs. Pardon me. But each of those running backs also presents a little bit of a different problem. So going up against a defense that is not as good as the 2 you have already faced, still good in its own right, but not as good as the 2 you have already faced, getting that those running backs to have their own identities in the offense might prove fruitful for the Kansas City Chiefs later on. Especially so. Each one of those running backs presents something different, and running on early downs, if the running backs can average the aforementioned between 5.4 and 8.2 yards per carry, it will set up slants on second down, and we're going to talk about that later. Nose tackle. Dexter Lawrence II has not been particularly effective, but golly gee, is he a big boy. If the Chiefs can get him out of the way in the running game, it could be a long evening for the Giants. Just to look at Dexter Lawrence II, you're looking at a guy who is 6'4.5", 342 pounds, though he plays at 348 this season. A 350-pounder on the field, absolutely insane. 36 bench press reps with 34 and 3/4 inch arms, basically 35-inch arms, still putting up 36 reps on the bench press. And you're looking at a guy at that size, runs a 5.05 40-yard dash. While 5.05 is only a yellow number, a 7.29 number for defensive tackles, I guarantee you it is a green score for men who weigh 350 pounds. He scored a 9.86 overall RAS, though he did not do the explosiveness or agility test, just based on his size and his 40-yard dash. 350 pounds running a 1.75 10-yard split. This is something, a blast from the past here for Chiefs fans that I had no idea about until I went back and started watching the Giants games. Raheem Nunez Roches is playing his 11th season for the Giants. The 32-year-old former 6th-round pick of the Kansas City Chiefs is listed as doubtful, but he was their starting defensive end. I had no idea he was still in the NFL. I don't know how that slipped by me, but it did. I had no idea, and he was starting for the Giants. What about when the Chiefs pass? The Giants look susceptible to the slant, and they look susceptible up the seams. If the Chiefs have Xavier Worthy for this game, it could be a big day. If the Chiefs have Jalen Royals for this game, it could be a big day. I think that Jalen Royals is a bigger threat to have the slants covered in this offense, and Xavier Worthy is obviously a threat up the seam. Hollywood, by the way, can be a threat at either of those routes. But I think that, so if the Chiefs get back both Jalen Royals and Xavier Worthy, we will start to see what this offense can become. And they're going to need both of those guys, I think, because there will be plays in this game where Patrick Mahomes will want to get the football out of his hands pretty early, pretty quick. The Giants have sacked opposing quarterbacks 3 times in each of the 2 games that they've played. So 3 sacks week 1, 3 sacks week 2. But it is Brian Burns so far this season who is doing the most damage, as he has 3 sacks on the season by himself so far. 2 in week 1 and 1 in week 2. And it probably is not a surprise that he has been particularly effective, in that he is 6'4.5", 250 pounds, with a 4.53 40-yard dash, a 1.54 10-yard split, a 36-inch vertical leap, a 10-foot 9-inch broad jump, a 7.01 3-cone drill at basically 6'5", 250, an RAS score of 9.9 overall. He is going to be one to watch in this game. If the Chiefs can slow him down, they might have a better chance against this defense overall. The Giants' defensive line and pass rush is going to be a handful, and the Chiefs had problems versus the Eagles letting people through the A-gap. If they can fix that and give Mahomes 2.5 seconds, they should have some success throwing the ball. If they can give Mahomes 2.5 seconds and he has Jalen Royals and Xavier Worthy on the field as well, it could go very well for the Kansas City Chiefs. They had made the point after week 1, losing Xavier Worthy, to say that Xavier Worthy was going to be a major focal point for the offense in the absence of Rashee Rice, and so getting him back could mean that the offense takes the look more of what it was supposed to be in 2025 versus having looked like what it was in 2024. So hopefully that is the case. I have not gotten a final word on that, but he was listed as questionable on Friday. What about when the Giants, run the football? Cam Skattebo is the running back 1 for New York, at least listed as such, and that means that there will be broken tackles, but the potential for 60-yard home runs is not really there. Hit stick Nick Bolton has proven that he can go toe-to-toe with power backs, and I imagine that is the game plan versus Cam Skattebo, who has on the season 13 carries for 42 yards and a touchdown with just a 3.2 yard average. That's going to be the big deal here. The average, because I think that the Chiefs are going to allow the running game some leniency in this game because, well, in part because Russell Wilson just went off for 450 yards against the Cowboys, but also because they're going to emphasize against the pass, because if you can beat them with the run, well, maybe they shouldn't have been there in the first place, right? So I think that is going to be the focus here, is stopping the pass. So Cam Skattebo might have a better game than average, but I don't know how much better it gets if you're only going to average 3.2 yards per carry, because if you're doing that, you're not getting a first down in 3 runs, and all of a sudden your offense is back off the field, and if the Chiefs have a nearly full cupboard of wide receivers, they're going to be able to score points, and you're going to have to abandon that run. Number 2, Russ is not really a threat to run right now, but he does have 11 carries for 67 yards on the season, so he can still move when he needs to, though I don't think they should really game plan for that. If Russell Wilson beats you with his feet at 37 years old or whatever it is, then maybe you lost that game in other ways. For this game, I would sell out to hit the quarterback and stop the pass. If the Chiefs can do that, the running game can't hurt them in huge gashes with Cam and Russ on the field. Well, what about when the Giants pass? Like I just said, Wilson went for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns versus the Cowboys, but only went for 168 and 0 touchdowns versus the Commanders the previous week. The Chiefs need to put him under pressure and make him react fast so he takes checkdowns, because Danger Russ can still beat you. Funnily enough, the Cowboys, who he threw for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns and scored 37 points on, sacked him more times, 3, than did the Commanders, who sacked him only twice. The difference appears to be getting the penetration on the defensive line paired with tight coverage. The Chiefs proved they can get heat in week 2, though it wasn't just with the defensive line, and they proved that same game that they can stay glued to wide receivers. The Cowboys' defensive backs could not. That was the big difference, it looked like, in these 2 games. Say what you want about Wilson, but he knows how to take advantage of a zone coverage, so don't give him that opportunity. Malik Nabers, a former first-round pick, number 6 overall, is going to be a handful. This is his athletic data here, and a 9.67 RAS score at 6 foot tall, 199 pounds, but some very explosive numbers with a 42-inch vertical, a 10 foot 9-inch broad jump, and a 4.38 40-yard dash. But you see there, so 4.38 40-yard dash is 9.62 out of 10. However, the 10-yard split is 7.93 out of 10, having run just a 1.56. A good enough 10-yard split, but not an elite 10-yard split. So if you can get him limited to those first 10 yards while you get after the quarterback, he is a more pedestrian wide receiver than he is streaking down the field, where he can get 4.38 speed paired with a 42-inch vertical and go up to make the grab. The Chiefs cannot afford to let Neighbors fly because Russ is taking the YOLO ball this season, and Neighbors is at the receiving end of it. 14 receptions for 238 yards and 2 touchdowns, a 17-yard average to this point. Wan'Dale Robinson has been a decent threat as well this season with the same number of receptions, 14, but a 197-yard total and 1 touchdown with a 14.1-yard average. So Wan'Dale Robinson is providing a good second option. Tight end Theo Johnson, but after that, it's a pretty big fall off in the Giants wide receiver core as far as production so far this season. Tight end Theo Johnson, tight ends have hurt the Kansas City Chiefs in the past 20 games or so. He has not, however, been a factor on the season with 5 receptions for 39 yards, but if he gets the ball in his hands, he can be a force. He has an RAS score of 9.93 at 6'6", 260 pounds with 33-inch arms, a 39.5-inch vert and a 10'5" broad jump paired with a 4.57 40-yard dash and a 4.19 short shuttle. This is an athlete that can beat people. So do not allow him to get hot because he is not hot yet. The Giants' offensive line was ranked 30th by PFF ahead of this week, but they were not particularly leaky in the passing game. Their best offensive lineman is 6'4", 338-pound Jermaine Illuminor. Their left tackle is questionable, listed as questionable. Not that he is questionable. He is listed as his availability being questionable, and his replacement last week, James Hudson, was himself replaced by 5th-round rookie Marcus Mbo. If Mbo is the starter this week, Spags could have some decent stuff dialed up, particularly perhaps some cornerback blitzes to take advantage of the rookie having his eyes inside. It looks like an offensive line where the defensive line will have more luck than they have had in the first 2 games. That is to say that the offensive line for the Eagles is the number 1 ranked. The Chargers' offensive line is like the number 4 or 5 ranked, I believe. The Chiefs, by the way, this past week had the 11th or 12th ranked offensive line. Imagine what happens if the left guard and right tackle get figured out a little bit more. But I do think that the Chiefs defense can put some pressure on with their front 4, and if you keep that cover 0 all-out blitz going, which I kind of hope they do, I think that they could win this game fairly easily. My final prediction for this, the Chiefs 33, the Giants 21. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on the channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.